Morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for this Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. It is 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Commissioner and Vice Chair Gary Edwards will be present momentarily. We have Commissioner Carolina Mejia, our County Manager Miro Chavez, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell in the boardroom, and a whole host of staff members for particular items on this morning's agenda. We're slated to go until noon. There will be a break about halfway through. The public can follow along on the county's YouTube channel. And with that, let's just jump right into it. We have our COVID-19 update here as a first item. I see Shelley Slaughter, Director of Public Health and Social Services. Good morning, Shelley.
Good morning, Commissioner, and good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 587 of Thurston County's COVID-19 response. In Washington State, there have been 7,160 confirmed cases to date, with 6,981 Washingtonians who have died of COVID. This includes, according to Washington State Department of Health this morning, 16,333 Thurston County residents that have tested positive for COVID-19 during this pandemic, which puts us at a current case rate over the last 2 weeks on the governor's risk assessment dashboard at 479.4, an all-time high, with 746 new confirmed cases occurring in the last week in Thurston County. This is also a record week for us in Thurston County. 169 Thurston County residents have died of COVID-19, with 7 of those deaths occurring in the last week. 1,057 Thurston County residents have been hospitalized, with 11 new hospitalizations occurring in the last week. Our hospital capacity remains critically high, with 90.5% of our ICU beds fully occupied and 84.8% of our acute beds occupied. We do have critical staffing shortages in our hospitals, and there are 63 COVID patients admitted right now in Thurston County hospitals, and 41 of those are on ventilators. Our test positivity rate is also at a record high at 21.5% currently over the last week. We do have community-based testing available. It is very busy right now for us in public health. Today, we will be at Rochester Organization of Families from 10 to 1 and throughout the community the rest of the week. Highly encourage anyone who is symptomatic to get tested as soon as possible. In terms of vaccinations, we are seeing an uptick in those seeking vaccinations, which is a good news. 326,487 doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered by our Thurston County vaccine providers. Currently, 58.8% of Thurston County residents have initiated at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and 53.4% of Thurston County residents are considered fully vaccinated. 69.6% of those 16 and older have initiated at least one dose, and 63% of 16 and older are fully vaccinated. 68.4% of those 12 and up have initiated at least one dose, and 62.2% of 12 and over are fully vaccinated. Of course, pediatric vaccines for those under age 12 is not yet available at this time, and more than a quarter of our cases are those under age 19 right now. Schools are back in session and our team is very busy, but thus far that seems to be going well, and we highly encourage people who are subject to a vaccine mandate to please get vaccinated as soon as possible. We have experienced some shortages of Johnson & Johnson vaccine as of late. We hope that that will be resolved. Testing capacity is also challenged across the state and the nation right now, but we are hoping that there will be sufficient testing supplies available soon. And with that, I will answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner Mejia. Any questions for Shelley?
Yes, I have two. Are we planning to increase testing sites?
At this time for us at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, we do not have the capacity to increase more than the 5 days a week that we have been doing testing. We've seen record numbers of people coming to our community-based testing sites with our mobile unit testing, at times over 100 people a day at the site. So for Thurston County Public Health, we cannot increase that capacity at this time. Our healthcare partners also do not have the staffing to stand up something like a drive-through testing like we did earlier in the pandemic. However, there are other entities that are planning that. There is testing available at local pharmacies and healthcare providers, as well as over the counter.
Thank you. And then my next question is, I heard that we might expect pediatric vaccinations to be available sometime this year. And I was wondering if you had any more information on that.
That is what we have heard as well. We are hoping that that will be the case. We know that they are working hard to complete the trials to submit for approval for pediatric vaccinations. We are planning and prepared for that, as well as to administer booster doses in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes. Shelley, could you tell us about how many county employees have been vaccinated so far?
I'm sorry, sir. I do not have that number. Perhaps County Manager Chavez may have more information on that for Thurston County employees.
No, I don't have that accurate number on that.
It was around 400 about 2 weeks ago, I think. So no change since then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, we haven't run reports yet, and the 400 number that you heard from Maria a couple of weeks ago, it was based on some of the reports that we had received from offices and departments. Not all offices and departments have submitted that report for checking vaccination. So that number is soft. I think we believe it's a little bit higher. And as soon as we get the offices and departments to report on those individuals who have been vaccinated, employees vaccinated, I think we'll have a much better number.
Okay. Shelley, pardon?
Just give a little more information on that. That was a point in time, and it was based on people requesting to not wear masks. So since everyone's back to wearing a mask, we won't see that until we, probably until we implement the testing requirement.
The vaccination requirement, so.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it'll be a while.
I've heard now that some jurisdictions are looking at giving credit for recovery from COVID-19 and the natural immunity that they get from that. Anything on that topic that's available?
I don't have anything further on that. I just know that Washington State has not been counting that during this pandemic.
How about at the national level? Do you hear anything there that they're looking at maybe accepting that as part of this process?
I have not heard that either.
We're waiting for the OSHA guidelines to be published. We should see something soon.
And that's federal?
Yeah, the Federal Department of Labor will publish the occupational safety hazard administration will publish the national standard.
And that is on the heels of the president making an announcement last week, imposing that requirement of vaccination or testing to all employers who have 100 employees or more.
Okay.
So OSHA is going to hopefully will give us a little more guidance.
And those will apply to us.
Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Okay. And Robin, on that last topic, so just, I don't want that point to get buried. My understanding of listening to the president last week is that the requirement that we had decided on just a week prior is basically going to be required, whether we've done that or not, it's now going to be required at a federal level. the president talked about employers over 100. I didn't hear any distinction between public and private. Do we know any reason to believe that those rules would not apply to us?
We did hear the president say, and if you read the 6-point plan from the White House, it does say private sector employers. However, when you read the initial OSHA information, they're not distinguishing, and we believe that it will apply to us.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Shelley. Appreciate you. Oh, I had one question on the
County manager's got
stats.
something here.
Okay, sorry. I got one question on the stats, then I'll go to Ramiro. I just didn't hear you highlight, because it jumped off the page, that the 7-day positivity percentage is 22.9. I don't recall seeing a number that high before. Is that an all-time high as well?
That's an all-time high. However, what is in your report is data that is from 2 weeks ago, and the 21.5% is from the last 7-day time period as of this morning. But yes, that is our absolute record high.
Like by a factor of 2, correct?
Oh yes.
Okay, go ahead, County Manager.
Yeah, along the same questions, that captured my attention, the 22.9%. That seems extremely high. And considering that we have 479 cases per 100,000 population, that seems to be a little trending down from what we have seen, or maybe just bouncing on the top of the curve. Thank you for clarifying that. I was a little bit, off on those two numbers. But also, and the reason that I'm saying, bouncing off the top of the curve, because I've seen that curve in the number of cases, or perhaps it's trending down. And that is aligned with perhaps what we've seen at the national level. But also this coming week, we'll see the effects of Labor Day. And that is going to tell us how really this thing is moving forward. So I know that Public Health publishes those curves and the numbers on the website. I'd just like to, put a little bit of caution that perhaps this coming week we'll see the results of Labor Day and see where it goes. And also, as the schools have opened this past week, we're also going to be seeing a little bit of effect of that as well.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Chair, could I ask one more question, please?
Yep.
I don't know when this is going to come up, but another employee wrote a letter to Romero asking some questions. And are we going to be discussing that maybe at the Board of Health meeting this afternoon?
Is the email, I believe I responded to that.
Yes, but my concern is those questions seem quite valid as a concern from an employee. And I just wonder if we're going to talk about the fact that we're, going ahead regardless of what the answers are to these questions. I think they're just very well thought out questions that I wonder about when we're going to address.
Yeah, and some of the questions, as I recall, are going to be addressing on that policy because it's related to some of the union negotiations they need to go through as with the unions. And that's what the majority of these questions are, unless you have any specific question you'd like to highlight on the email that we received.
Well, there was a list of 13 of them there, and I don't know if this is the time to go through it or maybe at the Board of Health. I don't know.
You can go through right now if the chair likes to exercise that.
I don't know, did the rest of the county employees get this or not? No.
Because that will be in violation of county policy.
Well, this is just a question back to the response that you put out that we're going to require a vaccination. Is that right?
No.
This is not in
No,
response to that?
This is a question, a series of questions that I received as well as the commissioners received from this employee. And my response back to that employee was, I will be addressing all those questions and the draft policy that I'm working with, and that will be published in October to all county employees.
Okay, so I guess there's more to come on this. Thank you.
But if,
Yeah, I mean, that's why I kind of made, Commissioner, that's why I kind of highlighted that point about the federal government, because our policies at this point are going to need to track the policies, I guess, OSHA is coming out with. There's no reason for us to try to reinvent a wheel that's going to be, when a different wheel is going to be imposed on us from above. So it seems to me that a lot of the more very specific policy questions in that email you're referring to are not going to have answers at this juncture. And the answers that are going to be provided are going to probably be coming from the federal government based on what they did last week. So I don't really want to go through that today. I don't think it's a good use of our time.
Okay, that's fine. I just concerned.
There are a lot of good questions in terms of how the specifics are going to work. I agree, but we're not there. And frankly, the county at this point shouldn't be trying to, formulate those specifics. We should be waiting and see what OSHA guidance provides, and then we can plug any gaps.
yep. But also I believe all employees deserve to hear a consistent policy as we move forward. And because I don't think it will be appropriate for me to answer specific questions every day that I have an email from a specific employee. And that's what we are working on, a policy for all employees to see what the next steps are.
I guess my concern, Chair, is that we're going to impose something on the employees without knowing a lot of these answers, like what happens if they get the virus after they've had the shot? Or, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that's one of the questions submitted, but so are we getting the cart before the horse? That's kind of what I'm wondering about. And I was wondering when we might be able to discuss that. That's all.
Robin?
So we might be in a position, depending on how fast or slow the federal government goes, to have to come up with our own policy and then adjust it when we have the federal rules, just on a timing issue. So we may have to, and we are working on developing what that policy is, and we'll adjust it when we see the OSHA rules, but OSHA may not move fast enough. We should have something in place when our policy becomes effective.
Just one real quick follow-up on that. There's something about certain vaccinations are approved by the CDC, I guess, and other ones aren't. So do we have all the vaccinations available to employees that might want to get that? Or are we requiring just certain ones that are already authorized past the emergency stage? So that's, I guess, a Shelley question of how we're going to handle this.
In Thurston County, our vaccine providers have all three vaccine types available. All three have been approved for emergency use authorization. The Pfizer vaccine has most recently been fully approved by the Food and Drug Administration.
So are we going to require people to get a vaccination that's not approved yet by the CDC? Is that okay? I guess that's just a follow-up question.
Are approved for use.
Okay, well, more to come, I think.
Okay, let's move on to homeless strategies update. And we've got Keely Marino. Good morning.
Good morning. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. Very brief update today. I know we have a lengthy agenda. I'm going to just start out as per usual with the rental assistance update and where we're at in terms of serving residents of Thurston County with rental assistance dollars. So Community Action Council has to this date served 2,067 households. Just under half of those are households with children under 18. They've spent out about $14.4 million in rental assistance and about $675,000 in utility assistance. And nearly 60%, so 50% of those households that are being served are under 30% area median income. So good news there. And when they send their updates, just so you're aware, they also attach multiple thank you letters that come from the households that they're serving. And if that is of interest to the commissioners, I'm glad to pass those on. Community Youth Services, with their rental assistance program, has served completely 79 households of young people between the ages of 18 and 24. And there are another 144 actively in process, and they've spent out about $600,000 of their money in serving young people in Thurston County. For other updates, just trucking right along with the scattered site pilot program. We are meeting on a weekly basis nearly with the City of Olympia and with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners to just check on progress, work out the kinks. It's been 5 weeks or so since the program officially began, and we're excited to hear about how that continues to go along. I do not have any official numbers for this week, but I'm happy to provide those next week if you are curious. And then lastly, we continue with Olympia Free Clinic and Thurston Mason Medical Society in planning vaccine efforts in the encampments and those who are living unsheltered. Those have been going on for about 4 months or so on a weekly basis, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times per week. A lot of what gets offered is medical attention and wound care. Honestly, that's one of the elements of that effort that have been incredibly successful. And that's all I have for you today.
Questions, Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay, me either. Thank you, Keely.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to a review of this afternoon's agenda. Meeting to call to order at 2 p.m. We'll look at the agenda and board meeting minutes from August 31st. We have a series of presentations. Looks like 4 of them. The first one is a proclamation for Day of Service and Remembrance.
Yeah.
Who's doing the Pledge of Allegiance today?
It's not listed.
Yeah, we'll add that. Thank you.
Okay, that'll be added before this afternoon. Proclamation for Day of Service and Remembrance.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration will be to take this moment and proclaim the National Day of Service and Remembrance, September 11th. I believe you reviewed this proclamation, and I don't know if we're going to be able to secure guests for this afternoon. Amy, you got the chance to?
Yeah, I've shared the information with Kurt, and he's going to invite.
Kurt Harding is going to make an attempt to bring some members of first responders, so that will give you the opportunity to say thank you through this proclamation.
Questions on this item?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Let's go to item under presentations, emergency services, introduction of Medic 1 employee.
Yeah, Commissioner Kurt Harding, the Emergency Services Director, will introduce Jared Ladmeyer as a new Medic 1 business applications technician to this afternoon.
Kurt, anything we need to know?
Nope, he'll be there and he'll be ready to answer questions from the commissioners. I told him you're a tough crowd.
Is it Latimer or Latimer?
Latimer, Sheriff Latimer.
All right.
Is it Latigo or Latigo?
I know.
Latigo, Latigo.
So if it's Latimer, it's got to be Latigo Street, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Look forward to that. Public defense, introduction of public defense employees, and Patrick has a crew, looks like.
He has quite a few. He will be introducing Jose Villanueva as defense attorney number 3, Diana Anderson and Peter Sabian as defense attorneys 2, Niles McDonald's and Peter Call as defense attorneys 1, and Hannah Reynolds and Kathleen Moisiuk, I think, as the legal assistants 1. So that will be a whole crew from public defense. The board will have the opportunity to welcome new employees to county government.
Okay, don't imagine there's any particular questions there. So let's look at Public Works presentation regarding introduction of Public Works employees.
Yeah, the county engineer, Scott Lindblom, will be introducing Public Works employees to the Office of the County Engineer, the Financial Asset Management, Water Resources Board Operations. We don't have the names, but I'm sure Scott will highlight the names this afternoon.
I see Scott's here. Anything, Scott? You're muted.
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, oh, is it Scott Lindblom?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, I don't have anything to add. So.
Wrong Scott. Sorry, Scott. Scott Lindblom, you are on mute.
There we go. That makes a difference. Good morning, Scott Lindblom, County Engineer. Yeah, we'll have 12 new staff from Public Works being introduced to you this afternoon. 4 from the Office of County Engineer. Karen Weiss will introduce new staff in our finance group. Tim Wilson introduce 4 folks from our water resource group, and Mike Lohman will introduce 3 folks from our road operations team.
All right.
Wow.
So 12, let's keep it short, Scott.
Okay. Yeah, that's too bad. I'd like to, hopefully I get a chance to meet them in person, other places, because got Board of Health and stuff, but that'll be great to see them. Thank you, Scott. Opportunity for the public to address the board follows. County manager update with respect to any follow-up. Ramiro, anything to report on today?
Yes, I'd like to just to provide the public heads up that this Thursday, September 16th, the county will have a fire drill evacuation, and we do that every year, and there will be a disruption in services for just about 15 to 20 minutes. And for the members of the public who are in the building, they will also be participating in fire drill as part of this event. And I will highlight that this afternoon. Also,
So if you're in a hurry, don't come during that time.
and also, and by the way, that will be September 16th at 1 in the afternoon. So okay, thank you. And also, maybe on the public testimony down your agenda, I'd like to highlight, following up on the comments that we've received in emails from Ms. Esther Carnberg related to the Black Lake. I've got some feedback that I'd like to share with the board, and also, and so I would like to respond this afternoon. That's
Ramiro, does that feedback, after you and I most recently discussed that item, there was an email from council. Did you see that? I mean, is that going to be incorporated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I got feedback. Okay.
Commissioners, any questions?
Well, I know that you sent them out a letter, Commissioner Menser, with your research. And is it going to be kind of like in response to that too?
Well, if you like, I can go with that. This is a little bit different. I believe Ms. Osterberg highlight RCW 8538.220. And this particular RCW speaks about the process of suspending special districts' operations. Under those requirements, they have a couple of thresholds they need to meet under this RCW. One is the adoption of a resolution, for the board to consider having a public hearing for consideration to suspend the operations of a special use district. One is the adoption of a resolution proposing such action by the governing body of the special district, that will be the Black Lake Board. Another option on this RCW is the filing of a petition proposing such action with the county legislative authority of the county, that will be you, in which all or the largest portion of the special district is located, which petition is signed by voters of the district who own at least 10% of the acreage in the special district, or is signed by 10 or more voters of the special district. Ms. Osterberg submitted some paperwork, and it appears they meet this criteria before you to hold a public hearing. And the third aspect is the adoption of a resolution proposing such action by the legislative authority, which you have not taken. So under this criteria, there is this statute has may or may not, but it seems to be that from legal counsel, based on the perspective that you and the information you have received from Mr. Osterberg, the Board of County Commissioners must hold a public hearing, not necessarily in any time bound, but you must hold a public hearing to hear testimony related to the suspension of the operations of the special use district. However, the next step in the process, after you hold the public hearings, I understand it, then you need to make a decision whether you would like to suspend operations in this district for the benefit of the public. And as a result of you suspending the operation of this district, the county will take responsibility for all operations, maintenance, and financial aspects of this district. So those are the next steps that perhaps needs to be taken. So the public hearing itself does not decide at this point whether the Board of County Commissioners will take such action or not. Based on the perspective we have received from legal counsel and the information provided Ms. Osterberg, the Board of County Commissioners must hold a public hearing related to this matter.
Just-
A little bit different to what.
Yeah, I now have a question when you get time, Chair.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say that as to Commissioner Mejia's question, my letter and research went to some of the specific arguments that have been made about the special district. It didn't go to the question of the necessity of having a public hearing based on a petition. So that's why I had asked for input from council, and it sounds like we got that input, and we do need to do that. But then if, depending on what that public testimony is and what the discussions are, maybe some of the stuff that I put forward would be relevant at that point. But I was just, I had never looked at the statute about the petition, and well, we never had no need to, because we'd never seen a petition to request suspension. So this is kind of new territory for me. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess maybe the county manager and you yourself as the chair, could your seatmates get a copy of that letter that you sent to your constituents?
Yeah.
It was distributed to.
Oh, it was? Okay,
Distributed to the board.
I haven't seen it yet. Okay, thank you.
But not recently, it was distributed maybe.
It was like two years ago, or.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
but
it was last
I mean,
year.
if it's something, did you just send out something recently, sir?
No.
Oh, okay. But maybe just as a piece of information that we might have, if we could get a copy of that.
Oh,
it
we
might
can
be
make a
beneficial.
copy, yeah, we can make a copy.
And then also some of the material you're referring to, is that in our material here yet?
No, Ms. Osterberg submitted that information to all commissioners back on September 2nd. So I'm just reacting to the information that she submitted to.
Okay, so I might already have that, is what I.
You should have that in your
Okay,
email.
good enough.
Yeah.
And then my ending question is, when we voted to allow this funding mechanism to take place, I don't know, a year or two ago?
Last year.
Was it last year? I had been assured that we would never be in a position that we had to accept the financial burden, but did I hear you say something like maybe that would become our responsibility?
So a couple of steps. Last year, there was a lot of arguments regarding whether the Black Lake Special Use District had the authority to implement activities related to water quality. That was addressed in many ways, even with the Department of Ecology. Moving forward, when the board approved the Black Lake Special Use District to issue a bond to treat the lake, it was very clear, and the county will not take any financial responsibility associated with the action that you took last year. Fast forward to this petition. The petition is asked the board to hold a public hearing, to hear the public, whether you would like to stop the operations of this district. That's a different decision the board needs to make. My point is, if the board makes a decision after the public hearing to suspend the operations of this district, rest assured that as soon as you take that action, you absorb the responsibilities of the district. So it's not a connection at this point. I'm just giving you what the next steps if the board wants to take those actions. That makes sense?
I guess so. I guess what I'm worried about is if those residents on the lake make this push to dissolve this group, am I hearing that they have the ability to do that?
No.
As well?
The board,
only bring the information to us.
The board is the only, at this point, the board is the only body at this point where you can take an action. So
They have the ability to force us to set a public hearing on it, but it's our decision.
the individuals who have signed on this petition for you to hold a public hearing, they do not have the authority to dissolve this district.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mejia's got her hand up, Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
I have a question in regards, I mean, because my question is in regards to the people who live on the lake and then, you know, citizens outside. I mean, is there a difference in between the comments that we receive and who signs the petition? Is there rules on that? Is there, or can, you know, someone from, who's not affected by, you know, let's all sign it, like, what's?
I believe they have the 10, there's multiple attachments to their email that went to all of us. One of them has signatures of people who live on the lake, and it's, I mean, assuming those are accurate, and I have no reason to doubt them, it's more than 10. It's not hundreds, it's maybe, I can't remember, 13, 15 or something. And then there's a broader petition of people that are outside just to kind of support. But legally, the statute, as you point out, is focused on the folks that own property, and they have the requisite 10, it looks like. That's something for council to look at. I know that we did that in Summit Lake. We had the same thing, and we had to kind of verify addresses and whatnot just to be certain we had that they met the legal requirements. But on the surface of it, it looks like they have the 10 lake property owners that they need.
Yeah, that is correct, and I think it's close to 20. So they meet that part of the statute for you to hold a public hearing. But is by you holding a public hearing, I believe you're not bound to take the next steps. It's just procedural at this point.
Okay, is that it for, yeah. Is that it for county manager update?
Yeah, I will provide that, and based on that perspective, and we'll work on setting a public hearing, but I will follow up as part of the public testimony this afternoon on that.
Sounds like more to come.
Yeah. Okay, consent agenda. There are 5 items. 3A is, change order number 6 for Tilly Sand and Materials Storage Project, 25567.
Well, here we are, commissioners. You know, you have no idea how much I struggled to have this item before you. But as any project that we deliver, there's always that unexpected what happens. And at this point, when the board authorized, the majority of the board authorized to move forward on this particular project, you authorize the assistant county manager up to 10% deviation from the contract amount. There is a little bit of overrun. They will ask the board to really gives the authority to get up to 12%. It's not a significant amount. It's close to over $9,000, and is what we need authorization from the board. And that is well, we asked all the change orders is 31,000, but the overrun on the authorization is $9,000, which equates to just about 11%. And that's what we asked the board to consider approving.
Commissioner Mejia?
So I have 2 questions. Can I get some background on this? And my second question is, what were the overruns?
The elements of the overruns?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would like background on this because it seems like there is history. I don't like the person out of the joke.
So I can give you the background. When the Tilly campus was built, back in maybe now 12 years ago, if not more.
More.
Yeah, so there was we needed to store sand. And the sand is needed during the operation, especially in the winter. It was a conditional permit that we will have stored the sand on a temporary storage. So over the last few years, we have used this storage using a tent, a tarp, and you know, the tarp has been replaced because the weather takes a toll on that. But the condition was that at some point the county needed to find a permanent location. So it created a little bit of a catch-22 in a way, because also the code had a restriction that, on the square footage of the impervious surfaces, meaning the roof lines. So we couldn't exercise that requirement because we were constricted by the limitations of the impervious surfaces on that site. 3 years ago, I believe 4 years ago, the board went through the process of changing the code to allow the expansion of the impervious surfaces, roofs.
I don't think that's ever been done, has it?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, that was the only way that we can go through this.
Okay. More to come, I guess.
No, I'll just provide a history. So that gave us the opportunity to move forward and find a permanent location for the sand shed. And that's why we went through and tried to identify the permanent location as to where we're going to store sand. And at that point, many conversations, many ways as to how we're going to be managing the project. We started with a high cost. We found a way as to how we can reduce those improvements until we came to this point. And the majority of the board authorized moving forward with the sand shed. And when the board authorized, that included a 10% normal, 10% of deviation. And here we are about 11% deviation from the cost. So that's the background that I have.
So what were the overruns? I'm sorry, just one more question. What were the overruns that caused it to be over?
So we ran into an issue in the project design. There's a stormwater basin that was inappropriately designed to be at level with the high groundwater. And I'm gonna ask you to help me explain this if you need to. And that had to, we discovered that rather late in the project. So we had to go back to the design and adjust where that's going to be. That caused delays and a greater cost. Now, we have already talked to our attorney, and I don't want to talk a lot about it because we are negotiating with the company that did the design work. But at this time, I need approval to spend this money and go forward.
Can you draw it out for me?
Now you want me to draw?
Go to the whiteboard. I'm sorry, I'm a visual
Sure.
person, so I'm like, I need to see it.
Yeah, I can't, but he can.
So what Robin is talks, this is the sand shed, right? And we needed to have stormwater, catch basins and pipes. So the design was the catch basins and the pipe was designed in here.
Commissioner Messer, you want to pop in here really quick?
You know, I've seen and heard enough about the sand.
Okay.
So what,
I'm okay.
What the designer missed is the high water table, right? And the high water table is right here.
Okay.
So it won't drain.
So if we cannot have stormwater underwater.
Okay.
So the change is to adjust this and take it to a longer location. Redesign the stormwater in a way.
And, yes, and relocate where it's at. And
So that's really the
became-
gist of it. I know
yeah.
this is schematics more to it, but that's the intent.
Right, so that's costing us additional money, and we are pursuing remedy, but in the meantime, we need to be able to go forward.
Thank you.
And then the last piece of the history that's worth noting is that Commissioner Edwards, had brought it up several times. He didn't think the money could be better deployed, and Commissioner Hutchings used to tease Commissioner Edwards about it because it came up so often. It just kind of became an inside joke when we talk about the sand shed, because it was just something that just kept coming up, using as an example or a talking point. So that's why we're laughing when we bring it up. It's almost like rumble strips, it comes up over and over and just became sort of funny. But obviously it's a pretty big project and had a lot of pieces to it.
And Commissioner Edwards has very consistent on his perspective on this.
And it is an important project for Public Works to be able to easily get in and out and load those vehicles, especially in times of inclement weather. So it's an important part of the.
Commissioner Edwards has some questions, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess I don't want to beat a dead horse to death here because we've talked about it a bunch, but Commissioner Mejia has not been privy to that. And I don't want to make those arguments all over again because I don't think the timing is right to do it now. It's a done deal. But I do want to remain consistent on my votes. And, it was $1 million expenditure that I disagreed with. So I would just request that this be taken out of the consent item and put on to the regular agenda, so I will be able to remain consistent.
Fair enough. We'll do that, sir.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Let's go to 3B, Human Resources Tort Claim Settlement.
Commissioners, you have been aware of this particular case, and this is claim number THMALO 30825. Is Jessica Maldonado versus Thurston County. You have had many discussions on an executive session.
Excuse me? I didn't think I heard the number right. You said it's 825.
THMALO 30821.
It's 21, right?
Yep. Did I say 25?
You said 25.
Oh, you said thank you.
So I just wanted.
So that is Jessica Maldonado versus Thurston County. And I have to praise our attorney to reach the settlement, which requires your concurrence of the settlement amount of $50,900. I really don't want to get into the details of this case. And I'm sure the board is well aware of the conditions of this case, and I think this is a good settlement. So kudos to our attorneys, and just moving on.
Anything from the board on this item?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, let's move on to 3C, Information Technology Interagency Agreement with the City of Yelm for regular and ongoing exchange of geospatial data.
Thank you.
Dennis Osorio.
This is an ongoing partnership with the City of Yelm and along with all the jurisdictions where we exchange spatial geodata across the county, and that's related to the Geographic Information System, also known as GIS. And this partnership has been in place for, I'll say, probably 2 decades, and again includes the City of Olympia, Tumwater, Yelm. So this particular agreement is related with the City of Yelm to continue the partnership of exchanging GIS data. Dennis?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Osorio, IT Director. I think you covered it well, Romero. It's partnership that we have with other cities in the area, and we're just looking to do the same with Yelm, and it benefits both us and Yelm as well. No cost, at no cost.
Yeah, no cost. It's just allow us to exchange data.
Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
That'll be on the consent agenda, item C, or actually it'll be bumped up to B because we're removing A. So that'll be 3B, and then 3C and D will be the auditor's financial service voucher list. Any questions from the board on the voucher list?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, let's go to department items then. Item 4A is assessor item. It's a single source service agreement with Just Appraised.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. I believe you reviewed this item last week. If not, forgive me. This is the request from the Assessor's Office for you to consider purchasing and implementing the Just Appraised for $4,800 implementation and $45,000 annual licensing. The Assessor's Office made a compelling case. It's a well-needed application that allows to really expedite how they produce the exemptions and assistance to lower income and seniors and disabled properties related to this exception. So let me give you my perspective on this. At a high level, as actually the assessor needs this particular application. I believe they're planning to cover the cost in 2021. However, I'd like just to make you aware that, that this is not a one-year expenditure. So you also will be committing $45,000 and the years to come. And I believe that is a request from the assessor for you to consider the budget process. So I just make you aware that it's not just a one-time expenditure, it's an ongoing expenditure that you need to address during the budget process. You consider the many requests on the biennial budget. And I believe we have Daniel from the Assessor's Office if you have any questions.
Questions for Dan, Commissioner Mejia,
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, my question would be, if we make this ongoing expenditure, in the long run, are we going to be saving money for the taxpayers?
Yes, absolutely. It's if this isn't a solution that's approved, we would have to find another way to cover the increased workload, which is likely a request for an additional FTE. And this is a much cheaper option. The savings we figure to be about a full FTE. Just by eliminating data entry and those types of things, so we can shift employees with, knowledge of the exemption program and the things we do in our office, and then they can focus on assisting the public instead. So yes, it is a savings going forward.
Thank you.
This may be a Robin question, but is there an aspect of this that we need to take action now versus having it as a budget request?
The assessor has decided to absorb the cost this year. However, in next biennium's budget, he is requesting that the board increase his budget to cover the ongoing cost.
And we would have a chance to reconsider that if we so desired.
Correct. And
Okay.
yes.
So.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Chair, so this is actually what, an advisory vote that we're being asked to make? Is that what it is? No.
No, you're being asked to approve this purchase. And then the assessor will absorb the cost in his budget this year. And the board will decide whether or not to fund the ongoing costs next year. Should the board decide to not increase the budget for ongoing costs, then the assessor will make a decision of whether or not he decides to continue to absorb if he's able, or discontinue use of this software. That was the presentation that the assessor made to the ITC subcommittee.
So, and I just want to make sure that you connect the dots on this, Commissioner, because it's not just one ongoing, one-time cost, it's an ongoing, and that's part of your decision-making process, as Robin stated. So, full picture.
Full disclosure. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Yep, thank you.
Item 5A, set a public hearing regarding countywide home fund.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a follow-up to the planning session that you received and the direction from the board was to hold a public hearing. And that is for your consideration is for October 19, 2021 at 3 in the afternoon or soon thereafter, where you will be receiving public testimony, not necessarily on the proposed action, but on the intent the board may seek to implement a home fund. And the home fund is 0.1%. They have the option to go to the voters as well as Councilmatic, and that will be to address low-income, affordable housing, mental health and behavioral health related facilities, and funded the operations and maintenance costs of units of affordable housing in the county. There is really not any surprises that we have a need in the county, and this is the direction of the board. You also asked me to draft a letter send it to the mayors of all the jurisdictions in the county. That letter is ready for your review, so I will be circulating that today. I will receive some comments, and if the board approves setting the public hearing this afternoon, I will ask the board to send that letter tomorrow, and then we'll send that to the mayors as requested by the board.
Question, Commissioner Mejia?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, sir. So if we set this hearing for October 29th or 19th, after that hearing, could the board make a decision either to put this on the ballot or to impose it immediately at that point in time?
I believe that is the intent, because this particular, if you set the public hearing, the only action that will recommend the board to do is to close the public hearing. I will not be bringing that action at this point because the board has not discussed the next steps in the process. I believe the board wanted to hear from the public about the intent of this particular option the board may consider. But at this point, you're right, and no decisions have been made. The board needs to have a discussion how you like to go about and if, first of all, if the board is interested in going through this process, and what will be the avenue to do so.
I guess my concern is I'm opposed to a councilmatic solution to this and moving forward with imposing an additional tax on the citizens. But I'm not opposed to putting it on the ballot and seeing what the public has to say. And so this is a precursor to either one of those options?
Yes. And thus the board needs to discuss up to the public hearing how you want to do it.
Okay, well, I guess it's hard to put an option in front of the public without doing this. My concern is that we might choose to do it councilmatically and then it's a done deal.
Well, that's something.
And that's just the way the process works?
That's that conversation you
That's what
have
I'm
with your
up against.
teammates. Yeah, but at this point, and again, this public hearing, it will not have an action to approve it. The only action at the end of the public hearing is to close the public hearing. And after you receiving public testimony on October 19th, I will organize another briefing as to how the board would like to proceed based on the public testimony you have received. And at that point is when you need to have a conversation with your teammates, whether it's councilmatic or going to the voters.
Or neither of the above. Okay, any other questions on 5A?
Well, I guess not at this time. Not at this time, sir.
All righty, then 6A is Central Services Mottman Complex Feasibility Study.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the purchase the county did on the Mottman Plaza buildings to accommodate the needs of the auditor's office. This particular action is for you to consider amending the current contract that we have with Thomas Architecture Studios for the amount of $64,312 plus tax to start working with the county, mainly with the auditor's office, to start defining and designing the space we have purchased. That needs to be done in order to get to a point of having some tenant improvements. So this is, again, a follow-up to those actions the work has taken in purchasing that property. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Do we currently have a contract with this group?
So what we have is a set of contracts. We have, much like in public works, we have certain types of design and engineer contracts that are open. They've been put out to bid so that the terms are already set. And then for any particular job, we do a work order that's considered an amendment when you take action on it. But we have these contracts in place that we've done an RFP early on that are available to us. We select the company, the consultant that has the most expertise in the whatever work we're about to do.
Okay, then as a follow-up to that, we already have a contract and it's for a set amount, and now we're adjusting the contract to add 64,000 to it?
It's not a fixed amount contract. It's a terms of engagement, if you will, type contract. There's an hourly rate that's set, and whenever you have a particular job, you go and you negotiate the total price based on the terms that you've agreed to in the RFP. And again, this is standard in public works. We do it for many. Public works has the same kind of, these are on-call type contracts.
It's a way to move forward in the process. What Robin stated, if I may, is we go through a request for proposals and we outline the needs, technical services needs that we need from consultants, whether it's in the engineering side, whether it's specific expertise that we don't currently have in the county, and could be environmental, or could be structural, or could be architectural services, like this one. So when those firms are selected through the request for qualifications, request for proposals, then we negotiate the umbrella contract. And the umbrella contract includes the hourly rate, some of the staff, they may be participating in that, but that is the extent of that contract. So when we see a rising need in the county, in this case for architectural firms' needs, we approach this firm who has been selected through a request for proposals, and we give them a scope of work. And the scope of work in this case is to help us design the tenant improvements at the Monument property. So then this consultant takes that scope of work based on the hourly rates you have already negotiated, then produce a budget. And this is the result of that.
It does. I guess my concern is that initially, when we were discussing the purchase of this property, we were talking about some type of remodeling activity that was in the, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, I guess.
Millions.
Well, now it's up around 10 million, I understand.
We have a $10 million placeholder in the CIP. And what we need is for an architect to work with the auditor, facilities, and records to determine what the real need and cost will be.
Well, those estimates, I thought some time back, I don't know, months ago, I thought they were more in the 100,000 area of remodel, and now we're creeping more and more and more. That's what my concern is. So.
And that's a good point, Commissioner. And by hiring an architectural firm, it will give us the latitude to present to the board a true estimate of the proposed improvements.
Right, and at that point, the board can make
Yeah.
decisions on which of those improvements to move forward with and start to determine needs from wants.
And that's a good point, because it will be a good conversation with the auditor's office versus what they actually need to operate that facility versus what they want.
Right.
And because we do have a finite dollar amount that we can implement, but we need this firm to guide us through as to what is the remodel of that building and how much it's gonna cost.
Right. Each walkthrough with the auditor has revealed something a little different. So we need someone to come in and actually work with her.
So it's gonna take this amount of additional money to come up with what the final real estimate is above and beyond what the original estimate was, I
Right.
guess, way back when.
We knew when we purchased the buildings that there would be some necessary investment to do them, design them to meet the auditor's needs. Now we have to figure out exactly what that is and how much it will cost.
And in the process of government doing business, we just don't have these kind of experts on our staff, right?
That is absolutely correct.
We don't have a licensed architect.
But the hourly rate for this group remains the same. It's gonna take more hours to come up with this potential, is that it?
This is the hours for this particular work order. When we do the RFP, we don't list specific projects. So that we have someone on call when we have work that needs to be done.
And when we're doing something like this is a small enough monetary amount that we don't go out and maybe ask for bids from any other firms that do similar work because we've got this prior contract. I'm just trying to get a handle on
That's the
that.
whole point of going out with the RFP. We do that about once every 3 years so that we have consultants who've been vetted through an RFP process available to us.
It is a common practice of exercise over the last 15 years, if not more. It's what allows is to really access those professional services readily available, so we don't delay those projects that we need to deliver.
Going through an RFP process every time would add at least 2 to 3 months to each project.
Okay.
I have a question. When was the last time an RFP was done? It's one every 3 years, so is that,
Roughly every 3 years. I'll have to check with my staff to see the last time it was put out.
But it's still valid.
Yes.
This contract is valid, so they have no lapse in terms of the time.
Commissioner Mejia, anything else?
no, that's it.
Okay, my questions were pretty much covered by Commissioner Edwards' questions, so we're ready to move on. 7A, Emergency Services, interlocal agreement with Thurston Regional Planning Council.
Yeah.
Kurt Harden is here.
Thank you, Commissioners. A while back, you authorized the acceptance of the predecessor mitigation grant that was approved back in July of this year by the board to start working on a regional hazard mitigation plan. And that, at this point, so this is the next step in the process. In order to achieve a regional hazard mitigation plan, we need to have an agreement with the Thurston Regional Planning Council, which allows to cover the entire county associated with the hazard mitigation plan. This particular contract goes from May 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2024, and has a cost of $166,611. And again, this is going to be funded by the grant that we have received, I believe, from the federal government. Kurt?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. The County Manager summarized it fairly well. And again, this is in the update cycle, the 5-year update cycle, and the funding does come from a grant we received from the federal government that the Board of County Commissioners had previously accepted earlier this year.
Any questions for Kurt on this item?
The dollar amount is being funded from
The grant.
the grant, right?
Yes, sir.
It's not out of our general fund. Thank you.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank
I have no
you.
questions either. Let's go to item 8A, Public Health and Social Services, contract with Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston counties for rent and utility assistance.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is the proposal for you to consider allocating an additional $6,905,000 to the Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston counties to continue to provide rental and utility assistance to the citizens in need as a result of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although the title of the Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston County, that's the title. The services, if you approve this, will be only for Thurston County residents. This is a continuation. They have been, the Community Action Council has been pretty effective in delivering the previous allocations the board has made. It has come from the State Department of Commerce as well as from the federal government. It will continue to receive additional funding, in this case is from the U.S. Treasury Rental Assistance Program. Before this item was brought to you, we did have a conversation with the Community Action Council leadership just to make sure they do have the bandwidth and the capacity to continue to provide the services, and also just to make sure that we put some parameters as to the level of service the county is expecting. That has been met, and that's the reason why for your consideration is this item today. Tom, would you like to add anything on this?
No, that's an excellent summary, Romero. Tom Webster with Public Health and Social Services. I will just add, this is the first of a couple new rounds of funding we're going to be getting from Commerce. So this is directly money we received from the Department of Treasury. In early October, we expect to receive additional funding from the Department of Commerce that we'll also be bringing before you. So this is just the first step in a round 2, or is it round 3, of additional rent assistance funding that we'll be receiving going forward.
Commissioner Mejia?
Is this specifically for rent assistance?
Yes, it is. Rent and utility assistance. So utility assistance is also allowed in other, it's very similar to the existing program. There's a few minor details that are slightly different in terms of eligibility, but the intended costs, the eligible costs are the same.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, Tom, these payments go directly to the landlord or the utility, is that right?
That is correct, although if for some reason the landlord or utility does not accept those payments or is not responsive, there is a possibility for the payment to go directly to the tenant, but only if the landlord, for some reason, which is very rare, declines to accept that payment.
But even in those cases, Tom, we assure the money goes for rental assistance utility payments.
Yes.
So there's always that the check and balance in the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Let's go to 9A, Public Works Contract Award for the Burfoot Park Restroom Replacement Project.
Thank you, Commissioners. On August 12, the Department of Public Works received 8 bids to reconstruct the bathrooms in Burfoot Park. The result of that bidding process resulted on the recommendation for you to award the contract to Construct Incorporated of Tumwater, Washington, for the amount of $751,692.96. And also we're asking for the board to consider an additional 10% to cover unexpected activities during construction. The funding is coming from the parks impact fees, as well as the real estate excise tax 2. As a combination the board has already approved on the budget this year. And again, this is the next step in the process after the board authorized going through the bid process. And Keelan Forbes, Shiny from Public Works is here. I know Brian is here from Public Works if you have any questions.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
Brian, is there anything built into this contract that's going to help us with vandalism?
So yes, that's one of the big things with this was to replace a lot of fixtures. So out there right now, they're porcelain fixtures. So the toilets, the sinks, which we've had a lot of issue with vandalism on those. Part of this is some vandal resistant facility, basically. So everything's going to be kind of stainless steel, easy to clean, paint can't get on it. And it's kind of a lot stronger, can't be broken off the wall and stuff, similar to what we have in jails and stuff. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, that wraps up the substantive items. We'll have our standing items under item 10, and then we'll go to Board of Health. Let's try to cover Board of Health agenda before we take our mid-morning break. So that would be called to order at 3:30 or as soon thereafter as we get done with the board meeting. And we have proclamations presentations section. Doesn't look like we do have something there. So we have, first we'll look at the agenda and meeting minutes from August 10th. And then we will have a couple of items here. Proclamation for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Shelley Slaughter.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Mr. Chair and members of the Board of Health. Our first proclamation today will be Suicide Awareness Prevention Month, which is September. And Marianne O'Garo, our senior epidemiologist at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, will present this proclamation item. We have several community speakers that will be in attendance to receive this proclamation from you today that work to prevent suicide in our community, to include family education and support, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and others. Marianne, our county coroner, Gary Warnock, is not able to attend today, but we do have data from him regarding Thurston County's current suicide rates. And just as a reminder that we discussed last week, part of the reason that this proclamation is so important is because we have seen an increase in suicides over the last several years at Thurston County residents. That's a great concern, especially right now during the pandemic, and suicide is the 8th leading cause of death for Thurston County residents and the #1 leading cause of death for our youth. Marianne, is there anything that you would add to that item?
That covers it well, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, sorry.
No, I'm fine, sir.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Okay. The next proclamation is regarding Septic Smart Week. And I know we've done this in the past. Art Stories here from Environmental Health. Give us a kind of just a thumbnail sketch.
Good morning. I'm Art Story, Environmental Health Division Director. And as you indicated, Commissioner Menser, this is something that we've done periodically. Each year, the federal government, the EPA, designates Septic Smart Week, and it's an opportunity for the federal government and for those of us who are involved with this sort of stuff to try to encourage people to do the right thing to make sure that they're monitoring and maintaining their septic systems, because as we know, they represent a big investment for people who have them in their yards. And when they malfunction or they fail, they can cause public health concerns. They can also be quite expensive to repair. And so this is just an opportunity for us to kind of amplify amplify the message across the country by participating in by participating in Septic Smart Week, which is actually next week, would be the 20th through the 24th. So the proclamation asks you to declare that along with the state of Washington and make September 20th to 24th Septic Smart Week.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Okay. Good on that proclamation. Thank you, Art. Opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health will then follow.
Well, there's one other thing.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
There's a presentation associated with this where we were going to have Vladimir Nekrotenko, who's with our on-site program. He'll be giving a brief presentation on some of our education and outreach efforts that we do, in particular those where we do the in-person and online certification of individuals so that they can monitor and maintain their septic systems. And so this is a really popular program that's started out in Henderson and Nisqually. It's been modified some because of COVID, and Vlad has been the person who's been in charge of that for the last couple of years. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity for him to share some of the things that we're doing and how we've modified things to keep them safe during COVID.
Is that going to come up during the proclamation part or during the later?
I think it's just afterwards is the way the agenda is set.
It is.
Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun.
It's on your presentation item. It's one of our department presentation items after the public has the opportunity.
Okay, all right.
I have sewage on my brain, so I jumped in. Sorry.
No problem. We'll get there. So we'll have the opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. Our department item for this month is, I guess, kind of segueing into what Art was describing. It says water quality and on-site sewage system operation and maintenance. And then this will be kind of an overview of those elements. Is that correct? Or
that's correct.
Okay. Okay, so it'll be focused on that rather than our sort of ongoing policy, discussion that we've had numerous times. This will be
this is what we're doing, and kind of highlights of a really effective program that we've been able to put in Henderson and Nisqually, and that we're also offering to some community members. And that it is part of that policy discussion you've had about, is this something we would want to broaden and provide to the rest of the county? But it's mostly just to show how an effective program and highlight it for the board and for the community.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Edwards, questions on this presentation?
No, sir.
Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Okay. Board of Health will then be able to report on any health-related activities. The health officer, Dr. Abdulmalik, I assume will be present to give her report. And then Shelley, you'll give director's report. Anything you want to highlight in advance or?
No, not at this time. We'll just be highlighting our usual activities to include COVID-19 response and all of our department accomplishments and upcoming activities and events that we want to share with the public.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. It's 10:25. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll pick up at 10:35 with the review of the September 21st draft agenda. Thank you. We're in recess. Welcome back. We're back after the morning recess. Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. 10:38 a.m. We're picking up with item 5 on the agenda, which is a review of the proposed agenda for next Tuesday's board meeting, which would be called to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. So I assume Commissioner Edwards is today, based on that. Approval of the agenda for the meeting and board meeting minutes from this afternoon's meeting. Opportunity for the public to address the board. County manager's update. Anything there, County Manager?
I will follow up if there's anything to be followed based on the public testimony this afternoon.
Okay, we have 3 consent items. The first is 3A Public Works, a resolution reclassifying a position.
Now, for your consideration, Commissioners, as we received, we have vacant positions in the county. The directors, as well as the head of the offices, they go through assessment whether that particular position meets the current needs of the business. In this particular case, the Department of Public Works has gone through this process. They have a vacant position. On the buildings and grounds maintenance specialist, and they would like to reclassify that position to the environmental operations technician in Thurston County. And this will result on increase from $5,203 to $6,641, just about $1,438 a month. And this will not be covered by the general fund. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions in regards to this.
Commissioner Edwards.
You did say it's not out of the general fund.
It's
right?
not.
Yes, okay, thank you. No questions, sir.
Ramiro, is this like conforming a job description to kind of what the person's doing, or is it actually shifting, like saying we don't need that? Is it, is it conforming to the practice, or is it changing for the new employee what they will be doing?
It is the latter. They will be changing because on the changing needs of the department. I can be more than happy to give you more details what this new classification will do for the department, if I may.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be. It will address the core responsibilities, reducing the frequency of the rotation basis, assist with routine maintenance, facilities, systems, equipment, and grounds. Coordinate public works and asset management program, implementation efforts for the solid waste division, and support on-site construction of capital improvement projects. Several significant multi-million-dollar facility improvements are underway, and they need that. So the current grounds and maintenance technician vacant position doesn't have that type of description to perform those duties.
Okay. Okay, let's look at 3B then. Another public works item, a different position reclassification.
It's similar to the previous one, and this is related to reclassifying the education and outreach specialist 1 to a senior program manager. As you know, the solid waste management plan, so it's been already approved by the board, and we're moving into this contractual aspect, so it needs a senior program manager to manage all the many aspects of the implementation of the solid waste management plan in the upcoming years. So absent of requesting an additional position, the department has gone through the process of assessing the existing vacant position, just reclassifying without adding a new FTE. And yet meeting the needs of the solid waste management plan implementation. This particular position is going to be increased from $6,325 a month to $8,843 a month, just about $2,518, and it will be covered by the tipping fees. It will not be the general fund.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions on this.
Commissioner Edwards.
No questions, sir.
So I have a question. The solid waste management plan, as I recall it, has a number of elements that relate to education and outreach. So do we have other employees that can meet those obligations, or how are we going to manage those
Yes.
requirements of our plan?
Yeah, and in fact, we have a section of education and outreach in the solid waste. So it's not the only position that we have on the outreach in education. There's, I believe, close to 3 additional staff, they do the work.
Okay. It's worth looking at because that's a really big component of that.
So what I will do is I will follow up with the department just to give us a specific number of staff they have to continue to do the education outreach as part of the solid waste management plan. Would that work?
Sure, we can take that up next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Item 3C is the voucher list, and the board will have a chance to look at that later this week. So let's go to item 4A, staying with Public Works. Public Works, heavy agenda here. We've got professional services contract for water and sewer utility rate design and financial advisory services. And Tim Wilson, our water resources manager, is here. Ramiro?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is the next steps and the conversations the board has been engaged related to the potential idea to consolidate all the utilities that we have into in the county. The board provided direction to secure the services of a company to further explore this particular proposal. So the department received 3 proposals by companies. They specialize in the utility financial planning with the objective to see if there's a feasibility to combine all the utilities into a single utility, a single umbrella. So the result of that process for your consideration is to award the contract to the FCS Group of Redmond, Washington for the amount of $61,010. And I believe the date of performance is February 28, 2022. And also the department is asking an additional 10% to cover any unexpected activities within this contract. Tim?
Good morning, Commissioners. Exactly right. So this study is going to do a couple of different, very important things for the utilities. First of all, it's going to do a revenue requirement, which takes an intensive look at each of these individual utilities and considers the revenue that is required to operate them both independently and in a consolidated state. So to inform your decisions going forward, both for 2023 and beyond rate setting, should they stay unconsolidated, and if you should choose to move forward with consolidation. The next component of the study is to put forward several different rate designs. So based upon those revenue requirements, give some recommendations for the most equitable way to set rates for these utilities that are fair to the customers and properly fund the utilities.
Questions for Tim, Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
What were the other bid amounts?
Let's see. I don't have those in front of me.
It doesn't have to be exact.
Yeah, this, I believe one of the bids was higher. One of the bids was a bit lower, but didn't address all of the concerns. And I should get back to you on that, Commissioner Edwards. I should look into this again because I wasn't ready with that question.
Send that to me and I will bring that next week. Would that work?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I just don't want to misspeak. Thank you.
Right. Just curious on how the process went. I didn't know for sure how you do your final selection. Sometimes it has to do with qualifications that they offer as well, and I'm just wondering how close we were.
This may be the case of qualifications as opposed to the little bit, correct?
Yes, we had a ranking team that was put together that considered references, similar work, qualifications, cost, several different factors in ranking these out, and FCS ranked out highest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. That's it. So quite a bit shorter than our recent agendas. That's the proposed agenda for next week. We have standing items 5A, B, and C for commissioner reports and county manager review. So let's move on to next is item 6, proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, clerk of the board. The proclamation for this afternoon for Day of Service and Remembrance is attached, as well as the proclamation for Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month, which has been moved to the 28th. And we will also have a proclamation from the auditor's office for the 28th for voter registration day.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions?
Commissioner Edwards.
No, sir.
Amy, can you remind the board, I'd like to know where we're at with that. There was a suggestion or a request from the public about recognizing the 130th anniversary of the Elks, I believe.
Correct, yes, there was, and I'm waiting on a response back from them on which date they would, what they had in mind for a date. I think in one of their emails had stated sometime between October and November.
So we have a little bit more time then.
Yeah, if you'd like to think about it, or we can discuss that now.
Well, I'm just going to throw this idea out. It's something that Thomasine and I have been talking about, whether or not, because there was concern from the board about, where to draw the line. Is this the right thing to do? So, we talked about and just an idea for consideration, maybe at a later meeting, but would there be an appropriate, like something shy of a formal proclamation, like something like a recognition where the chair, like during the proclamation section of the agenda, the chair could read a prepared, paragraph. It wouldn't be the formal proclamation and the photo op and all the speeches. That you could have one person, give a couple of minutes, and then the chair, the board recognizes, and then so move on. That way, you kind of acknowledge the community contribution of some of these groups, but you don't have the problem of it being overwhelming. It's just something to think about. Could we do? And if you think about it, there's other situations where that type of intermediate recognition might be useful to us. So something to think about. Is there a space between saying no or a formal proclamation that would serve the needs and balance the interests? Just a thought.
Follow up on that, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess if we do that, that sounds like a pretty good alternative to try and recognize those groups out there that do a lot of good things for the community. But we probably retain the ability to, just the way we're going over things today, and be able to say, well, they're doing great things for the community, and that's why we're going to do it, versus every group that thinks,
Absolutely. No. Yeah, we'd have to have the ability to say yes or no.
Yeah. Okay. Just as long as we've got that, I think it'd be better.
We talked about it. In the 3 years I've been here, there's been, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 requests like that. It's not an overwhelming number. I did at the last week, there was an event where Olympia, it was an unveiling of the Olympia Rotary Club. They commissioned a piece of artwork to gift to the community and commemorating their 100th anniversary. And the mayor of Olympia read a proclamation that the city of Olympia had done commemorating that. I made note of that in my head because it was basically, it's not like it's not like other jurisdictions aren't doing similar recognition. They did a full proclamation for the 100th anniversary of their Rotary, but anyway, just wanted to share that because, obviously it is done in other jurisdictions for, milestone events of community groups. So I'm just trying to figure a way to be able to do something without it mess with it and still meeting the board's kind of concern, which I share part of that it just, sometimes some of our agendas are overwhelmingly long and we have, multiple proclamations and then there's, so just finding a middle ground is something to think about.
But then as a follow-up to that, sir, the Rotary apparently did some commitment and dedication of an art item or something like that to the city for the betterment of the community and stuff, right? So it went kind of hand in hand, right?
Probably did. I mean, the mayor read a proclamation that had already been adopted by the council, but I'm sure that there was a connection there.
Okay, good idea. Thanks.
Okay, then Amy, looks like we've got an advisory board application here.
Yes, I've received one application from Aaron Kutoba for the Housing Authority. The current vice chair, Maureen McLemore, has submitted a resignation. So Aaron, if appointed, would serve the remainder of the term, which is until November 12th of 2023. And at that point, if Aaron wished to continue serving, he would need to reapply. Included in your packet is Aaron's application, a recommendation letter from the Housing Authority, and one from a reference of Aaron's that he sent forth as well. The Housing Authority has been recruiting specifically for a professional auditor, which Aaron is, and they are very excited he has stepped forward. So we can include this item on next week's agenda if there is consensus to appoint, or we can circle back next Tuesday morning.
Commissioner Mejia?
I'm reviewing the documents right now, but I don't have any comments right now.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, I'm just reviewing this as well. So.
Maybe let's bring this item next week so the board has opportunity to review the applications and the letter.
So I have a question here. So every board is different as we've gone over at the planning session. And so I'm going to need reminding of the Housing Authority parameters, but did this go out to the public? I mean, it's the first time hearing it and I'm being hand-fed a replacement versus the ability, for the public to respond and potentially apply. So how is there something in the bylaws that say that addresses like when there's a resignation and there's a remainder of a term, or is this just handled like every other board and commission? Because I mean, housing is a topic of incredible interest to the community, and I can't imagine there wouldn't be a lot of interest in serving on this board. So I'm a little nervous about being handed a recommendation without I had not even known there was a vacancy.
I think the resignation and the application were received about the same time. So I don't believe there was any further outreach specifically for that vacancy. If you'd like, I can get more information from Craig Chance of the Housing Authority, and
we can obviously revisit this next week because the board hasn't even looked at this application, but I'm going to have questions about how long this was open and how it was advertised to the public.
Can I follow up on that, sir?
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm wondering about is, it seems like we've got, I don't know, a recommendation from board members and the executive director, chair of that group. And I mean, I don't know this person, but I do know those that have submitted letters on his behalf. I guess it's his behalf, right? So I don't have any problem with having the group continue. I understand where you're coming from, but I like to have these groups have the ability to continue on. I mean, it'd be different if we were hearing there was problems, but is there any problems that I haven't heard about? Is there something going on?
No, I mean, it's our decision, and if I appoint this person without, and then I'm going to get, I could have a dozen people come out of the woodwork and say, I didn't even know this was available. Why did you, I mean, I just think there's going to be a lot of qualified people interested. This could be the best person, and I will weigh the recommendation of the board members heavily, but ultimately it's our decision, and we have to make things known to the public. We have to engage with the public. We have to give opportunities to people. I mean, it's kind of like when you're talking about, remember that time down in Chehalis where you wanted an opportunity to talk to the adjacent landowners and give them the opportunity to participate in that roundabout thing we were dealing with. It's that kind of a mentality of like, we got to make sure that all the people that would be potentially qualified and interested have that opportunity to submit their application. I don't know if that opportunity was provided yet. Maybe it was. Maybe this has been open and known for a couple, 3 months, but Amy reports to us every single week, and not once have we ever heard that there was a looming vacancy at the housing authority. So I'm feeling like they've handpicked their person, and that's not necessarily appropriate. We're the ones that have to make this appointment.
I guess as a follow-up to that, I'm just wondering if it seems to me on all of our boards and commissions that there's always the ability to put in an application, whether or not there's a particular opening at that point in time or not. I think we've kind of got an ongoing recruitment that goes on, and not specifically maybe addressed to any one of those boards or commissions, but where we're trying to encourage citizens to put in, and then when something comes available, they're going to be contacted. I mean, I do remember recently we had something developed like that where we had an appointment. We had a couple that are going to be waiting in the wings, so to speak. And I remember I asked Amy about that. Well, we'll keep these other applications on file, right? So that we'll have someone to look back to. Now, granted, maybe the application will become outdated by maybe the person moving or losing interest, but I think we always want to have an encouragement going on out there to participate in our local government, not just as an opening comes up, but all the time we should be encouraging people that have an interest to submit their name and qualifications maybe for that position. So I don't disagree with you that we do make the appointment, but it looks like we've got a pretty good recommendation on this gentleman. And so even though I don't know him, I know the people that have recommended him. So I see Commissioner McGee does have her hand up. So.
Just to respond to that point, as somebody who has submitted an application for a county board in the past, I can tell you that for some people, what you're saying works. They're always going to be available. Maybe they're retired. They know they're going to have the time. As a busy person, I was a full-time attorney at the time I applied. I would not have just submitted an application to be standing there because I don't know what my life's going to be like in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. I see an opening. I want that opening because I know I can make the commitment now. I don't necessarily want to make the commitment in 3 years from now when an opening pops up. So I think that what you're saying, it's great to always have that roster of applicants, but that just does not how everybody's life works. Commissioner Mejia.
I do have the same questions that you had, because for me, how it works, I have people emailing me about interest in specific boards, and I'll usually tell them, oh, yes, there's an opening, or no, there's not an opening, but you should still fill out an application. And sometimes people will like not fill one out because, they'll be like, okay, well, when there's an opening, and I'll, please let me know. So I'm constantly sending out, we send out a monthly newsletter, and I let people know in that newsletter, like, hey, like there's an opening on these specific boards if anyone's interested. And, I hadn't heard about this one, and I agree. I feel like anything with housing right now has a lot of interest from the public, and I'd like to know, if was this advertised, and if so, why were we advised that there was an opening, or if it was advertised, how long was it open? I do have one same line of questioning as well.
Could I follow up on that, sir?
Yep.
I guess there are always hot topics that seem to garner more interest than other things, that's just the way life is. But it seems like we've got 40-some boards and commissions, and they're always hard to stay on top of about what's going on. And I think we'd almost need a full-time Amy to do that, to really get it right, because, boy, that's gonna really take a commitment. We're always short of people, it seems like. So I don't disagree with either one of you on it'd be interesting to see, especially when there is something hot. But I don't know much about, well, I don't know anything about this person's interest. But I don't want to discourage people from putting in. I'd rather have active recruitment going on all the time. And when a group comes forward, and it's such a crucial group like this on housing, and boy, they're enthused, making a recommendation. Yes, there are other people that might be interested as well, but I don't know. I guess maybe I'm coming from the old guard school of thought or something too on that. You younger folks might have better ideas. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying I don't want to throw cold water on anybody for wanting to be on any of our boards and commissions.
So, suggestion, so we'll bring this next week. That gives you the time to review the application, and also we'll reach out to the Executive Director of Housing Authority to get some perspective as to how they went about in announcing the recruitment for this vacancy. And also getting to know when the vacancy will occur, and how the recruitment advertisement process worked out that resulted on this recommendation. And then at that time, we'll see how the board would like to proceed.
That's fine. I'm good. Thank you.
And I thought that we were also asking the board for feedback on my proposal for term limits.
Yeah.
Did we ever receive that feedback, or were they busy finding the replacement for the retiring person?
So they have a meeting coming up this month where I believe it's planned for them to discuss the term limits.
Okay. Okay, so then next on this sub item is the boards and commissions handbook.
Yeah, the two items, number 1 and 2, is a follow-up to the planning session that we had with the board back in August 13th, where we introduced the concept of Citizens Advisory Boards and Commissions Handbook. I believe the board members have reviewed, provided comments, and I believe the copy in front of you are including all those comments. And item number 2 is also a follow-up from the meeting, the planning meeting, where you reviewed the email that you received, Commissioner Messi received from Mr. Richard Mankemeyer. And I'm not going to be reading that. The copy of that email is included in your packet. And I believe at that point, Commissioner Edwards was going to follow up with Mr. Mankemeyer.
I did.
And so I just want to make sure that I just follow up with those two items. It was the result of that conversation.
Good.
So can we talk about the handbook for a minute? Did you need a board approval of the handbook, or do we already?
No, I at some point will. This is the latest version. If you have any additional information, let me know. But I will work with Amy to bring an action for you to approve the handbook. But also in that action, I will ask for you to consider that all the boards and commissions should be subject to OPMA.
Okay, so this is just kind of a status report today.
Report, and again, this includes all the feedback that we received from the board members. And if no other items, we'll bring an upcoming board meeting for you to consider formally approving this and also formally directing all boards and commissions to follow OPMA.
And are we going to get some legal input on that question? Because that's kind of a technical legal question about the OPMA and its applicability.
Right. Yeah, we'll work through that.
Okay, and then, so back to the last piece of this item, which is the email. Commissioner Edwards, did you have something to report?
Yes, but before I get to that, could I ask one more thing here on the Citizens Advisory Boards and Commissions handbook? As a follow-up, if you will. So, what was the last two things, County Manager, that you mentioned about what we were trying to figure out, the OPMA?
So
was there something else?
If the board members feel okay with this version of the handbook, I'll bring an AIS to an upcoming board meeting for you to formally approve this and consider having all boards and commissions be subject to OPMA.
Okay, and then
with the variant that we need to check with the attorneys to make sure that is applicable to all.
Right, that's where the chair came in about the legal part of it. Okay, so I guess certain boards and commissions apparently were told they didn't have to go by the Open Public Meetings Act. And so that's what they were following, right? And then we thought they did have to go with it, but we found out that, well, no, they didn't have to go with it. So now we're going to give direction that they should go with it, and that's going to be our prerogative to do that, right? I mean, the law necessarily doesn't say they have to, but we're saying, hey, let's all be consistent and go by this. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
The word you key on it, consistency.
Yeah.
Because it's inconsistent as to how boards and commissions conduct their meetings. So you key right on it is the consistency.
I think that's a good idea to, have all the boards do that, but we just need to get the direction out there to those boards so they know that, well, the information you had wasn't necessarily wrong, but we're going to make a determination. We're going to ask all boards and commissions when they conduct public meetings to do it the way we're recommending, which is follow the rules of the Open Public Meetings Act. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay.
I agree with everything Commissioner Edwards just said. My questions are more about, the consequences of violating OPMA are pretty severe, as we've learned on many occasions. And I don't want to discourage people from wanting to serve on advisory boards and commissions, and I don't want to subject them to the kind of scrutiny and penalties that we face as elected officials. So I'm just going to want to know, by us choosing to apply OPMA, are we subjecting them to legal risk, fines, whatever? I just need to know that. I need to know the ins and outs of that before I'm willing to make a decision about it. Commissioner Mejia.
To add to your point, I mean, some of them are already subject to it, and is there a risk to the ones that already do it and have to follow OPMA?
The applicability to OPMA, for instance, to the board is a little bit different to boards and commissions.
Yeah.
It's more about making sure they're advertised properly, making sure they keep notes, making sure they allow the public to come and be part of those meetings. So I think it's more on that area of the OPMA as opposed to, in your case, having a business conversation outside of the public's knowledge. So it's a little bit different of that. I don't think it's more about advertising to the public, but we'll work through that. And certainly, the board has the prerogative to say no to this proposal, or maybe just identify a few of the boards and commissions that you would like to impose that. So that's a suggestion from the staff. That's it.
Okay, more to come on that. So now we're on item 7.2. And Commissioner Edwards, what did you have to report to us?
Okay, so I talked to Mr. McNamara about that particular email that he sent. And he was referring to a local kind of an activist magazine here in Olympia that comes out. Now I can't remember the print, but I've seen it myself, maybe Progressive something or another. Does that sound right?
The Works in Progress?
Maybe that's it, maybe Works in Progress. And I think it was maybe his interpretation. I think he was adamantly recommending against an appointment. And the board chose to make the appointment. I guess he was against eventually. That's what happened. I think the email was his response to, well, there'll probably be an article about, there might be an article as a headline, but there was no headline. He was just recommending that. He wasn't recommending it or proposing it as a threat in any way, shape, or form. He was just saying, look, we've got we've got a candidate that has all the requirements we think the Ag Committee meets, and he disagreed with the applicant that eventually was selected. But he wasn't trying to threaten anybody about anything. It was his view that was an activist individual. I think there was reference to Black Lives Matter and that kind of thing. And there's question about their philosophy, and that's what he was bringing up, is what their philosophy is and does it fit. So I think it was probably not in the best taste, I guess, but I don't think it was with nefarious intent other than to educate the board. So that's kind of what I found out from. Nothing in headlines from some other article somewhere that was pointing something out.
So, because that's his wordings, his words on this email.
Is something about a headline, right?
Yeah, that's his words.
I don't have any of that stuff in front of me. It's in the packet?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just talked to him about it, that's all.
So,
all right, well, I think that there's two levels of problem with this.
Okay.
The first level is trying to strong arm a commissioner, bully a commissioner out of a decision that has been made, no matter what the content of that communication is, with mock headlines and et cetera. And then when you get to what the actual content of the communication was and the content of the mock headlines, it's just off the chart for me. So I'm maintain my position that Mr. Mankmeyer should no longer be serving the county as in the Agriculture Advisory Committee, but I'm only one commissioner.
I mean, for me, the thing is, I knew these headlines weren't real because I searched for them. I was like, is it going to be is there something that we don't know? Because these are, for me, very serious accusations. You're calling someone a racist, a Black Lives Matter terrorist supporter. I mean, these aren't just, these are very personal attacks, and it's honestly discouraging for me that this is coming. And he didn't have to agree with the appointment that we're trying to make, right? He, he could have written his, you know, like, he wrote his letter saying how he supported the other candidate, and that's fine. But for me, he took it a step further in making up these mock headlines and then personally attacks someone that, you know, well, now they're in the committee serving with them, and it's kind of almost like a violation of trust. And, you know, I feel like as a chair of any board that represents us, you know, there has to be that willingness to work with whoever is appointed. It doesn't matter that they agree with it or not. And it just showed kind of an opposite, something opposite when he decided to do those mock headlines there. And so I don't know. It puts me in a very difficult situation because I voted for him to be, you know, to be reappointed, and just seeing, I was expecting, I guess, something, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was expecting a little bit more. Than, you know, what he said. And because I cannot get over, you know, just the first part of just that. And I don't know.
Well, I guess I've got thicker skin, I guess. Things roll off of me probably a little easier because I've been exposed to it so much. But granted, I will say that, you know, it was in poor taste the way it was put together. But on the other hand, the committee has got him as president. I'd scold him for, and he was contrite about it when I contacted him about it. Yeah, that was, you know, he didn't make any bones about it. Maybe it was a mistake, but I can't go so far as the chair on removal, but that's up to my seatmates. I think he does a heck of a job. He represents us in a lot of areas, and that might have been a misstep, but I'm gonna stick with him, so that's where I'm at.
So just two things after hearing all that. I just want to be clear. I have pretty thick skin, but I'm worried about, you know, we're trying to increase diversity across county government. And I don't know if Ms. McGee has as thick a skin as I have. And I do not want her to feel uncomfortable serving on that committee. And as Commissioner Mejia pointed out, there's absolutely no way that she won't feel uncomfortable now. And I don't want to discourage other people of color from, you know, I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it comes from when you call someone a BLM terrorist supporter, but, you know, I've marched with the Black Student Union kids at River Ridge High School on Juneteenth. So maybe I'm a BLM terrorist supporter, but, you know, I just, you know, and so that's one thing I want to say. Second is, remember that Mr. Mankemeyer was removed from the conservation district for malfeasance by the State Conservation Commission. So it's not a first offense here. He was on thin ice, in my opinion, and I don't think that we should be permitting the chair of a committee to engage in this type of discourse and creating a absolutely uncomfortable environment for the rest of our committee members. I'll leave it at that.
You want to send him a note saying, rethink your appointment to president to that committee and do a revote or something and see what they say? I don't know. He has contributed a lot to the Ag Committee. That's all I can say. Did he make a poor choice? Yes, he did. Yeah.
I don't disagree that he's contributed a lot of significant, important things. Go ahead, Ramiro.
As I provided feedback on August 13th, I would encourage the board to, because you have been, as of late, heavily involved in boards and commissions and appointments. And I appreciate that. I think this is a breath of fresh air that I see, and the board members be extremely engaged in all the boards and commissions appointments that you do. As I stated on August 13th, and also I believe that any single appointment that you make is the reflection of the values of the Board of County Commissioners, is the reflection of the values of Thurston County. And that is the representation that all the board members and the boards and commissions do. Serve an arm, an extension of the values of the board, the values of the county, to reach out to the citizens as a whole. So when you look at everything that you do, I will encourage you to look as to what the values they represent when you exercise those appointments. That's all I have to say.
Good point.
Okay, well, I don't hear a second for my suggestion, so I guess we'll move
What was
on.
your suggestion? I didn't even.
That Mr. Mankemeyer be removed from the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I would like to look into that. Just for me, the language crossed a line. It just took it a step further. So I guess I'll second.
Okay. I assume that the Commissioner Edwards opposes the motion.
The was very clear, so I believe we'll have 2-1, so we'll bring an action item for you to consider the removal of Mr. Richard Mankemeyer from the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Ramiro, we've done this once before with regard to a member of the Fair Board.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
A couple of occasions, Fair Board as well as the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Okay, I'm not remembering.
Yeah, that was
one.
before you, this
Yeah.
that was before you.
Well, SWAC is a little different because those are like formal, I guess, to me, this is.
That was a citizen representative.
Okay, well, my point is, I want to make sure we're following the same process. If you know, I don't want to, I'm not trying to make news headlines or embarrass anyone. You know, if this doesn't need to have a formal action at a 2 p.m. board meeting, I don't remember doing that for the Fair Board person.
No, you do need, it was formal actions the board took, and it was a consent agenda on both of them. But in this case, since perhaps as a split decision, I will bring it as a department item. But in the past, it's a formal action because you take a formal action on the appointment, and also you need to take a formal action on the dismissal.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're being consistent.
We are.
Okay, PIO check-in is next, item 8.
Good morning, Commissioners and County Manager. Sorry. Good morning, Commissioners, County Manager, Assistant County Manager, Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the Board. Just a few quick updates. The Thurston County Historic Commission is presenting the second annual Thurston County Heritage Day this Saturday, September 18th from 10 to 11 a.m. Alex Gradwell with the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation will be the guest speaker. And she will share some information about maritime history in the region and then also take questions from participants. Due to the pandemic, the event is virtual attendance only, and people can find registration information on the county homepage at thurstoncountywa.gov. Next, we have a climate mitigation panel discussion that County Commissioner Menzer is going to facilitate on Monday, September 20th from 6 to 7 p.m. As you know, the Thurston County and the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater worked with staff from the Thurston Regional Planning Council to craft the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, and that will be the subject of that discussion. People can submit their questions now by emailing smedia@co.thurston.wa.us, but the second half of the discussion will be open for questions. And again, due to the pandemic, that's virtual attendance only. People can find registration information on the homepage. And finally, this is from Public Works. There's some supply chain delays and material shortages due to the COVID-19 pandemic that are impacting construction projects and maintenance programs this summer. The Public Works Communications team wrote a story about this that was published in our County News webpage and included in our Friday 5 newsletter. And this week, the county engineer will be interviewed by a major local news broadcast station about this story. So this is a really good example of earned media coverage that's been achieved through some of the communications tools that we've developed over the last several years. And that is all I have, pending any questions.
Any questions for Brian?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, great. Me neither. Before we jump off the advisory board's topic, I just wanted to check with, Commissioner Edwards had made a really nice statement about Ann Shipley from the Fair Board. And so thinking more about that, and I actually got some input from some Fair Board member who said, you know, could we present her with a plaque in recognition? And I don't know if the county manager had a chance to check with the board members on that, but
Yeah,
I was hoping the board would support that.
Working on that. Yes. So.
Okay, well, I don't get to talk to my seatmates, so just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we'll order a plaque, and at some point we'll ask Ms. Shipley to attend, and the board will have the opportunity to say thank you and present it with a plaque. Because after 30 plus years, absolutely on point to have a little more than, with all due respect, a little more than verbal acknowledgement.
Sure, I did what I could.
Yeah, you did. No, you helped me. So thank you. That sounds great. Okay, next is item 9, briefing public hearing decisions pending the 3000 Pacific Avenue lease option.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners, on those 3 items. On this item, I have 3 items that I'd like to discuss. In addition to that, I do seek a direction from the board related to the 3000 Pacific Avenue lease. Before we get to that point, I would like to address some of the comments that we have received from the citizen related to the cost of the lease and the lease amounts. And also, I'd like to provide, before we get to that point, I'd like to provide additional perspective related to the corner property that is here at the courthouse. And I believe there was an interest by the board to see if there is an opportunity to purchase this property. We have engaged Peter Matthews. They have reached out to the property owner, and the property owner, based on the email that I received, is willing to sell as long as there is a good offer. That's how to set. But at this point, the owner is not planning to go to the market, but again, is interested in entertaining an offer. Also, we have engaged with Peter Matthews to give us a sense of what the cost will be. So when we get to the point a little more in detail, I will organize an executive session with the board to see the value the Peter Matthews has come up, and then I will ask at that point if you like to take the next steps. And also, I believe there is a particular Commissioner Edwards would like to hear more related to a public-private partnership option. So we'll be scheduling a briefing with Nancy Neres, the expert on this, so we can follow up on that. So going back to the 3000 Pacific Avenue lease, and you have received a couple of comments this past week related to the lease costs they included on this potential project. This is not new in terms of some of the comments raised about this, and in fact, attached to your packet is on June 18th, we received a cost analysis of the lease conducted by Peter Matthews, and is included in your packet for your consideration. And again, I provided that to the board back in June. And also, yesterday, we followed up with Peter Matthews to ask if those statements and assessments continue to be in place, and they suggested that yes, those the evaluation at that time continues to be in place. For the members of the public, And what their assessment is, there's no other vacant property that has 90,000 square foot building within the city of Olympia. And that is the constraints that we have to have this building within the county seat. There are only two other buildings from their perspective that has over 30,000 square feet. And one is here at Johnner Court, and that is just about 42,000, which I brought that to the board's attention a while back. The proposed lease rate is $17.50, which is substantially less of the current market, which is $24 per square feet plus the triple net. And from their perspective, if the board needs to move forward on this proposal, the county could probably have a savings over $4 million over the 7-year term. So that was provided to you back in June. The competitive rates at this point varies from $20 to $25 per square foot, plus the triple net as they stated. So I just to provide additional perspective. And back in 2016, Keller Matthews entertained the lease of an 80,000 square foot facility in Lacey associated with a medical professional services. Their lease was for 30 years. The initial term was for 10 years. And they started the lease back in 2016 at $16.50 per square feet plus triple net for the first 5 years, and currently now that particular lease is paying $18 per square foot. And they were responsible to do all the tenant improvements. And they perceived that over the 4 or 5 years, the cost of the real estate has increased, and they continue to suggest that perhaps they propose $17.50 per square feet on the 3000 Pacific for a Class A rental range is less below market. Right now, the current market again is between between $22 and $27 per square feet. And they determine there is no any other vacant building that will have 90,000 square feet available for the county. I don't want to go too much into detail. If there's something I provided in the past, this report. If you have any questions related to that particular perspective, I'll be more than happy to answer. And that's the only, I believe, the only question that I need to answer before I will ask the board to provide direction. But obviously, if you have any additional perspective, feedback, questions, we're here. I think from the staff point of view, we have followed the board's direction to come up with a plan B as a result of the overall courthouse project now being going to the voters last April. That will be 2020. And the result of that is the board tasked me to come up with a plan B. And this is the journey of the plan B, and the time has come for the board to provide direction on this. And the reason the sense of urgency for me to asking the board to provide direction at this point is the property owner needs to know whether the county is interested in moving forward or not. That's all I have.
Are we prepared for comments, sir?
Yes, sir. Why don't you go ahead, Commissioner Edwards?
I've been pretty vocal about this whole thing, and I think what I want to mention that goes with my comments maybe is the fact that we're suffering from a lack of trust in this country. I think you see quite a split with the virus and how to treat the virus and what's best, and a lot of confusion. And I do think trust is suffering. Some years back, the public voted down a jail proposal, and the commissioners thought, well, they've got a plan, and they went ahead and built the jail anyway. It sat empty for years. It's utilized now. But I don't think that did any good towards helping our trust and building trust. There's been some other mistakes made in government, whether it's a building we owned for 17 years, I think, the old fish plant, never was used. And to a lot of people, they don't hear much about this because the media, quite frankly, hasn't reported much on it. But nonetheless, it's a fact that percolates with the citizenry and probably with your older citizenry more than the younger citizenry. But I see that we've got changing times coming. I think we've got some excellent employees that work from home here at the county. We've even got some that work out of state and are able to do their job. I think Amazon, I think it was, has extended their work from home program to indefinitely. They don't know what they're going to do as far as bringing back employees full-time into the office environment. Pierce County is canceling leases because of the ability of their employees to do their work from home. I just don't think that we need to have this expenditure at this point in time. And in the end, I mean, it looks to me like by the time 7 years go by, we're gonna have committed $40 million and tied it up. I don't have an exact figure, that's just a rough estimate. So I think that could cut into our ability to do the remodel that we need to do here on the Hill. The county manager mentioned a property that I didn't get into in depth, I think last week, because I didn't know what I ought to be talking about when it comes right down to how much you ought to say when we're thinking about buying property. But if we had that property in our possession, I think it opens up this whole hilltop for a heck of a remodel. I've been an advocate for a long period of time for a public-private partnership where we invest in maybe the first 3 floors and a private developer picks up the rest, but the building is built to the court standards that it would need for a 100-year program or more. I don't think we have to build a building that's gonna expire its worth within 40 years. And I guess that was the plan with this building. I mean, we can look at it, even in the 70s, they were putting thermal pane windows in. This doesn't even have thermal pane windows in this building. So it was built on the cheap. I suppose they did the best they could with what they had at the time. So I still tend to think that we could have a first-class courthouse built with minimal tax dollar expenditure and buy into it incrementally with a contract with a public-private partnership. So I'm not gonna beat a dead horse to death. I just think that times are changing and we're gonna have to adjust with the times, and I just don't think we ought to be in the business of leasing a building, of remodeling a building based on an almost 35-year-old Attorney General's opinion. If we were gonna do it, I'd wanna have a real accurate, recent Attorney General's opinion when we talk about expending REIT funding for remodels in a building that we don't own. So anyway, a lot of issues to come to play, but I just don't think it's the right thing to do and with the taxpayers' money right now. The public doesn't trust us all that well to do the right thing anyway. And boy, if that ends up, I mean, parking down there is a nightmare. I don't even want to get into the whole homeless thing that's taken place in the proximity with that property, motorhomes and such, kind of like over by the hospital. So I just don't think we've solved enough problems to warrant taking this gamble at this point in time. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's my answer.
Have you seen the tents at the bottom of the hill, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Commissioner Mejia, do you have any comments?
So, I mean, just to respond to some of, because I hear you. I mean, we're in a situation where there is a lack of trust, but that lack of trust comes from a lack of an action that has put us over the years, that has put us in this situation where we need to act, because over the years, things have gotten more expensive. And you're right, times are changing, and you know, teleworking seems, you know, to be the new way, but government moves slow. And it's one thing I've had to learn. And you know, we do serve, you know, comparing ourselves to, I guess, a private company where they're not serving the public directly. It's different with our line of work. You know, some of our staff have to be present every day. I've talked to different elected leaders here and a lot of department heads and asked them, you know, it's like, what is your model for working into the future? And most of them, you know, it's only a little bit of their staff that are going to telework. The majority of them, they have to be present because of the duties of jobs that they do, where they're serving the public directly. And so it doesn't really change, you know, the need for space in that time. You know, it might give to maybe offer teleworking options in the future, but as where we are right now with the technology we have right now, it's just people are still going to have to come in. And then, you know, that's just one aspect of things. But if we look at, you know, the courts still, you know, that's not going to change. They still have to have hearings. They still need courtrooms to hold hearings. And we're still going to be, I guess, you know, if we don't lease the space, then we're going to have to continue to lease Chandler court space, because they need the courtrooms. They can't function as is right now with the COVID backlog that they have. And, you know, in regards to a private-public partnership, you know, if there was someone knocking at our door saying, I want to invest with the county and do this, then I would be more than open to look at that option and say, yeah, let's go for that. But I haven't seen anyone, you know, I've heard so many options, like, let's do this and let's do that, but nothing really concrete. Nothing has been just someone coming up and saying, this is the option that there is, you know, and the only viable option that keeps popping up is the atrium, where there's a willing management team who's willing to work with us there. And you know, is it the way that, you know, I wanted to go? And I see this in parallels, and one of the conversations I had with Ramiro is I want to see that building in the corner and see if they're willing to work with us and see if we can buy it, because I feel, again, the atrium is it is a short-term solution to our current problems. And, you know, I think in the parallel track is also looking at a long-term solution on what we're going to do. And for me, short-term is like, okay, well, let's give the space that we need right now. Let's try to update these buildings as much as possible, and try to work within our means, because at this time, we cannot just continue the path where we're going and not do anything. Because, I mean, the needs are there and they're not going to go away, and they're just going to only intensify the more time we let them pass by. And again, is, you know, the plan B that, you know, wanted, you know, I wish we could have gone with plan A, and you know, I don't know. I just, I know it's difficult. But again, I feel the lack of trust comes from just letting these problems go in the back burner instead of addressing them when they come up. And I feel like we can't keep going that path.
Could I make?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I just keep it short. The things that Commissioner Edwards said at the beginning, not so much at the end, but all the points he made up front are the reasons why I'm supporting this modest intermediate approach and not proposing to put the new courthouse proposal back on the ballot. This was always Plan B. Plan A was to try to, create a new consolidated facility, which for various reasons we're not moving forward with. The next best thing was to reinvest in our courthouse campus, and the obvious way to do that is to lease some space for administration so we can create more courtrooms and attorney-client meeting rooms and just space for the new clerk's employees, and we have new judges coming in. We're already bursting at the seams. I keep pointing out that district courts, the study showed they were operating on 50% of their needed space back in 2014. We're 7 years later. District court isn't shrinking, it's growing. So there's no other, there's never been a Plan C. I'm not as conflicted about this because this is the obvious way to address within our needs in the short to medium term. Maybe someday we can build that trust and get a consolidated new facility that would meet our 75-year, 100-year needs, but we're not there, I think, for all the reasons that all the three of the commissioners acknowledge. So this is the thing that we can do. It meets the needs of our elected officers that are going to be involved, elected officials. I wouldn't be supporting this if it didn't have the full support of all the directly impacted offices and departments, and it does. And that's a pretty tall order and a heavy lift. I think it just illustrates the acuteness of the need. So yeah, I'm supportive of this. We've gone through as far as the building itself, we've gone through this. I think this is the third time we've gone through sort of responding to this analysis of the market and what's available and what the county's needs are. There's no other building that's going to meet. We went through them one by one. I wouldn't pick 3000 Pacific as the ideal location to seat the administration of county government, but that was the only viable building that met the various considerations that we had at play. So there we are.
So I would like the board members to affirmatively speak in support or not of this lease. So
I just want to make one more quick argument that I don't want it taken the wrong way, but because we don't get to talk off camera, everything we discuss is in the open and we follow the rules. So if we had any way to judge that mistrust, I guess, that does exist in the public, I'm going to refer to our own elections. I mean, I kind of squeaked by this last time around. Commissioner Mentzer, you had a
squeaked by.
Yeah, squeaked by. I'm trying not to categorize our squeaks, but and then we've got Commissioner Mejia that whipped him. I think she was easy 60-40 or something like that. So, but I have to say, I really think, and this is not a reflection on you, this is just the facts. The chair of the board in the last election, a very nice guy, he was supporting that courthouse downtown, and he ended up with 14 or 15% of the vote in his primary election. And it kind of shows the public is not quite there yet. I'm not saying this is going to be the same type of a reflection at all. I'm just saying the public, boy, they question what we're doing a lot. I get questioned a lot about, now maybe you know, oftentimes, Commissioner Mentzer, you and I have different constituents, it seems like, you know? So I probably face questions from a other side than you face, maybe, but I get a lot of questions. And my phone number's been listed for 50 years and it's still listed. And it never seems to quit ringing when there's a hot topic. And I just think that this postpones our ability to deal with the problem as efficiently as we could, because we're going to be locked into quite an expenditure. And at the same time, yes, maybe we'll try to buy an additional property so we have a lock. If nothing else, if we ever got rid of the property, boy, it'd be better one large property than, you know, kind of a piecemeal deal. So I just think the public isn't there yet, and they're gonna question what we do. And I think we're all trying to do the right thing. Just how that all comes out. So us squeakers, we'll just keep squeaking by, and Carolyn, she'll do fine, I'm sure. Anyway, that's where we're at, so.
So Ramiro you need,
I need an affirmative statement whether you support or not this plan.
Well, I'm always consistent, you know, I try to stay consistent, so I'm still thinking we could do better.
So it's no.
Yeah, mine is, yeah. I'm trying to be a polite no, you know, I try to make this all fit as well as I can, but no, I'm afraid the public's not ready for it yet, so anyway.
I'll say yes, and then we talked about the negotiating of the sublease.
Yeah, related to that is the 7 years. And just to make sure the clarification, the conversation you and I had, you asked me about why the 10 years. We have this proposed lease is for 7 years with the option of 3 additional years. If in the 7 years we see that something has changed, we can always negotiate that lease again for the next 3 years, or we can just walk away if we have a permanent location at that time. So that is really what the 7 years and with the option of 3 years. Because this is just, you know, as I offered to the commissioners, implementing a courthouse project. It will be a permanent location for all the offices and departments. It's going to take time, and it's going to be probably close to 7 years. If the board really wants to take this and really start, so it's not going to be tomorrow. So I continue to express, this is a plan B. This is a temporary location that we're moving to. This is not a permanent location. And what it does allow us to do something in this courthouse, and also allow us to start thinking, the board, as to what the permanent location will be. And what will be where would that be? Could be in the current courthouse or somewhere else. But I think it's just the interim additional space the board asked me to come up with, is that's what you are contemplating.
And, you know, I will say this, you know, I know that move is temporary, but, you know, in the future, I would like to return to the Hill. I do agree with Commissioner Edwards when he says it's a prime location and we have such an amazing view. But we just need to love and care for this. And
I will just point out that when we had our series of stakeholder meetings with this, included the City of Olympia, all of the officers, all of the elected officials and directors, before the board took the vote, Hilltop was the location, Plum and Union was the location, and West Side. The support was unanimous for Plum and Union, unanimous amongst the elected officials. And so there's that. Of course, it's the board's decision, but just want to remind folks of that. It was, I mean, it's been 2 years worth of Commissioner Edwards saying what a bad idea that would have been, but I just want to remind folks that we went through after all the presentations and all the discussions, and the board asked for the formal input from all of those stakeholders, and it was unanimous, which is why I think we landed where we did.
Sir, could I comment on that?
Sure.
Okay, I guess I do want to reflect on the only barometer that we've got to compare. And that is that the chair campaigned for that location and got, I don't know, 14 or 15% of the vote in the primary election that year, last year, I guess. And boy, that's gotta say, yes, the electeds very well, I agree with you, that's what they said. But boy, that isn't what the public said if you use that as any barometer at all. So.
Politics is a wily thing, but I can give you a lot of different reasons why those election results came out the way they did that have nothing to do with the courthouse.
Okay.
So the former chair of the board running against with the same, political affiliation, another, there's just all kinds of reasons why those numbers came out the way they did. And I do not accept the theory that it's because of that decision, which we pulled off the ballot. It wasn't even an issue at the point that the election occurred. So I think that's a stretch.
Okay.
But anyway, it's kind of beside the point.
So what I'm hearing is Commissioner Mejia, Commissioner Menzer are in support of this project, and Commissioner Menzer is not. So, and
Commissioner Edwards.
Commissioner Edwards, and I looked at you, and Commissioner Edwards is not.
Well, Ty and I do look a lot alike. He's got a similar haircut.
I got more hair.
So, the next step in the process, next week you will see an agenda item on your board agenda to authorize the county manager to sign the lease. Okay, that will be another opportunity to express your perspectives. Thank you.
Onward to commissioner items. Gateway Division 2A Phase 1 Developer Obligation Bond.
Yeah, this is hopefully a simple process. There is the Gateway Division 2. There's a developer who has already is in the Cox Prairie area, right outside of the Lacey, within the urban growth area of Lacey, within the unincorporated of the county. And the normal process is when they meet all the conditions, in this case, they have already meet all the conditions, this particular on this development, then the board authorizes the staff to release the bond. In this case, is to release $502,000 back to the developer, and that is really, I believe, the last step in the process. Pretty simple, but I does require the board to take an action to direct the staff to release the bond. And
Okay.
Larry is here to give you more details on the development itself. Is a housing development, is many phases. This particular outfit has gone through the process, and this is just to release the bond for one of the phases. That will be Division 2A, Phase 1.
Brett, what do we need? Is there any reason, any considerations for us to grapple with here that why we should or shouldn't take this action?
Thank you. For the record, Brett Forrest, Development Services Manager with Community Planning and Economic Development. The Gateway Division 2A Phase 1 is a park improvement bond. The considerations that you need are that it has been confirmed complete by the City of Lacey. A bit of history, this project was approved preliminary plat by Thurston County in 2016, and then this area was then annexed in 2017. So essentially the responsibility of inspection and completion has been with the City of Lacey. However, as part of the hearing examiner conditions of approval, a condition for a financial security or surety for the park improvements is still in the hands of Thurston County. That being said, I'd like to repeat that the completion of the park improvements have been confirmed and have been recommended to be released by the City of Lacey.
Question, Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
My only question is, am I getting a thumbs up from staff to do this?
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of staff to release the bond for the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, you got it.
Okay,
So, three go
three
ahead.
thumbs, looks like.
You got it. Do you need anything else from the board? Right?
No, sir. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you.
Public testimony, anything there, Romero?
I already addressed that earlier related to the comments from Mr. Conver.
Commissioner items, before we go to executive session. I have one thing that's might be time sensitive. Commissioner Mejia, anything?
No, since we're pressed on time, I'll say.
Commissioner Edwards?
One thing I'd just like an answer, but I don't know that we have to do it here, is on the single tree estates, when we finally got that done, what did that end, how much money did we take out of that fund to pay a contractor
I think
or something?
it was half of what the board allocated. The board allocated 50,000. I think we utilized close to 25, but let me double check.
But that's gonna be a lien against that property if it ever sells, we're gonna get that
That is
money
correct,
back, right?
yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah,
Okay, if you find anything different than that, would you let me know?
I will.
Okay, and I guess, any of these others, we just always have issues to talk about, never enough time. Okay, I'm good.
Romero, my one item is the request from the Squaxin Island tribe for a support letter for their fee to trust application. Can you let the board know what that's about?
Yeah, the Squaxin Island tribe has requested the board to provide support to the Squaxin Island tribe to go through the process. I believe is to put in trust one of the properties they have. And you may recall you had the same request a couple of months ago, but it was a property in Mason County. And at that point, the board really didn't feel it was appropriate. I believe this property is within Thurston County, Commissioner, if I recall well.
I think it's in Tumwater.
Yeah, so and I believe that is perhaps an adequate consideration for you to support this. It shows a good partnership with the tribe, a good faith effort, and if okay, I will circulate a letter.
I do have a question.
Yep.
Because I don't know what the property, where it's located, or what's its intended use, and reflecting back on what went on with the Great Wolf Lodge, different group, and then the litigation that developed with the county later on. Do we need to do that today without knowing much about it, or what is it? Do you know what they have in mind, or?
I can probably give additional information related to that.
I want to help them do stuff, but I don't want to help and then there's a problem later on.
How about if I'll give you all that information there?
What about the city of Tumwater? What are they saying about this?
I believe they're supportive of this, but
I mean, could we, I don't want to be at odds, we find out that, well, there was a problem and we went ahead and, so I would like to have a little more information about this if I could.
Yeah, me too. I would like to see the letter, possible.
Nothing against what they've got in mind.
If you could just put that, I mean, I had a form, and if we could just put that together and then have the board circulate to the board, and then it's in Tumwater. I believe they have the Tumwater Council's support, but I have to double check on that.
yeah, we'll circulate, and if you need additional information, I'll follow up.
Here's probably a good example of where two commissioners can't even talk, they share simple things.
And I appreciate that, Commissioner Mesa. That is slipped through the cracks in my to-do list.
Okay, great. So we'll take a look at that. Let's go into our executive session. How long do you estimate, Ramiro?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. It's okay. So the board will now move into an executive session pursuant to RCW 423110B to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause the likelihood of increased price. Housing options is the specific topic. Commissioner's action may follow. We're estimating 30 minutes. It's 12:07. So we will estimate coming out of executive session around 12:37.
Commissioner, if you feel comfortable, could you join us on the boardroom?
Absolutely.
Thank you.